Wait, I'm going to talk into the mic for a second. Sean actually got some really wonderful sponsors tonight, and they are in the raffles as well. There's Dark Garden, and it's a $200 corset thing. I mean, amazing. I don't know if you guys have been to the Dark Garden. It's amazing. I want it to be fixed, actually. Can you fix it so I win the raffle? Okay, all right, thanks. And then the other things is the absence and getting a free tour for 3 to 4 people, 2 to 3 people. 4 people. And then there's also really cool posters from the Fillmore. There is who was Blondie. Prince.
Imogen Heap.
Who?
Imogen Heap.
Imogen Heap. All right, it's just for us. PJ Harvey.
Sebastian. Belle and Sebastian.
Belle and Sebastian. I don't know that.
The B-52s.
The B-52. So join the raffle, and thank you for the sponsors. So and Sean for putting the book together.
So as part of sponsorship through Dark Garden, I'm wearing their $375 purple corset male. Yeah, feels good. Now, all the writers, when they come up, I think they know their order. Here's some absinthe. You gotta touch the green fairy. MG is, I don't know. She's drinking beer. Then she's nursing. I don't know. Maybe. It's up to her.
I got a driver.
You gotta talk to him. Last time I had this, I wanted to puke.
Do it.
So this is the Cold War. And I asked my sister about this because, I played with Barbies with her, but I wasn't quite sure. And I was going to write a satire, but it became a little more serious after I talked to her. I did not understand why Brian wooed my sister with a crayon drawing of a great white stalking a scuba diver because she played with Barbie dolls. What was the attraction in that? What was the attraction in her? I was his messenger, and as the first grader mediating the lust of the third grade bully, I marveled at the task. He had crossed the lawn separating our 2 townhouses, anointed me with a sheet of typing paper. The love letter, my passport into her bedroom. The swimmer, oblivious with a spear gun, the shark the same length as its prey, meters away from swallowing. The rows of serrated teeth, a reminder of Atsugi Naval Air Facility where we lived. The barbed wire, separating the United States Navy from the Japanese host. Brian was bigger than I would ever be as a 3rd grader, or a 4th grader, or a 5th grader. He led a wolf pack of freckled purebloods, blonde but skinnier. They swarmed the lower halls of Shirley Lamham Elementary School, their broad shoulders muscling ownership of the jungle gym. Brian's father, a Marine, drove a Harley, let him ride bitch. That's where the swagger came from. He'd put his helmet on and they'd take off towards the airfield, pace the F-8 Crusaders with shark teeth nose art, launched to intercept Soviet bears, simulating a retaliatory second strike with nuclear-tipped nuclear missiles. That's how I imagined it. Like every other boy in my neighborhood, I wanted to be a naval aviator, skirt the territorial waters of a definitive enemy, preemptively deep strike hardened targets, protect the homeland. Our fathers and mothers wanted us to be officers and not enlisted men. However, Brian established the height and weight requirements, and I was too short and too light, and all my pilot heroes did not tan well, meaning I was too dark. That said something to me. And yet, on winter days when Mount Fuji's snowcap descended to the city, my skin was as light as Ken, my sister's whiter than Barbie. The change didn't matter. Less didn't mean gain. Yet there's something false about the Cold War. Every kid my age was certain, and it was the bomb shelter, especially the basement below the ubiquitous thrift store on every base. where Barbie and Ken dolls were recycled and salvaged alongside second-hand couches and dining tables, third-hand beds and lamps, fourth-hand mixed-match teacups and plates. If not the overpressure from an airburst, you think clapboard siding and Korean War-era subflooring shielded radiation that retail defended against multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicles, and life continued. Figure Barbie's legs, the kind of pacifier to quiet the rumors of war. Figure Barbie as the one instrument to pace my sister's idle time as we moved to Transient Lodge waiting for the corrugated aluminum Quonset hut. Then finally to the townhouses. Figure Barbie's blonde hair and pink dresses softened the gray metal and the off-white of military housing. Figure Barbie, comfort, a substitute for grandmothers, her hands empty of its lotus. Barbie needed to entertain my sister, kept indoors, whereas I explored our fortress home riding my bike, training wheels off, to the hangars, the golf course, the public works yard, the rifle range, the forest, the school after hours, the fence line, and the breaches in the fence. I had always thought the reason my sister did not play outside was because she was self-involved with her dolls, that she was introverted, that she hated dirt. It's true, when she was younger, before I was born, she refused to be set on the floor, on the carpet, on the lawn. She would not crawl. So it was easily decided to keep her contained. She demanded it. Our parents obliged, and indoors. What else could she do besides learn to keep house, but play with dolls? Barbie was not her first choice. It is more the consolation prize, or the stepping stone, or the gatekeeper of things and customs later to come, like a primer. Barbie prepared my sister for future ownership of my mother's collection of geisha dolls, encased in glass. I never understood their purpose beyond decorating the tops of stereo floor speakers, straddling the ends of the piano. They were to be looked at, their moon-faced brows brightly arched, speechless in a dance pose folded into a heavy kimono. Dust will never set on them. The fingerprints on the glass cases, many of them mine, many of them my sister's, point to fragile complexions whenever, if ever, handled. While geisha dolls suggested my mother's affinity to Oriental art, it underlined a tendency of hers to uphold feminine standards in whatever cultural spotlight she thought mattered, meaning geisha, Barbie, Miss America, Miss Universe, Playboy, or Penthouse, informed her ideal breast size, waist size, nose splay, eye circumference, leg ratio, IQ, or catwalk trot. Even the comics she bought for me illustrated the proportioned heroine or damsel in distress. And perhaps this is why I had my first television crush in Barbara Buck's indelicate and inelegant Daisy Duke. She was the antithesis to any of my mother's expectations of American womanhood. She didn't need high heels to boost her score, and yet both women had a bond. Daisy waitress at the Boar's Nest. My mother did the same at the Chiefs Club. Yet Daisy was more successful flirting with the clientele. She had no husband to worry, no bruised arms to anticipate, no fists at the end of shift. My mother did not oppose the working woman. She valued ambition, but she preferred Hotlitz Houlihan, the MASH lieutenant, fulfilling the nurturing role, and despite a bloodied smock, the flirting role. My mother saw Hazard County backwards, the twang rugged and incomprehensible when compared to the urgent bark of surgeon orders. Combat was romantic. There on television, the gurney pietà of nurse and dying soldier, repeated every week, motivated my mother's customer service pushing dessert, or the extra cocktail. Daisy Duke's canonization was blasphemy, and yet all the neighborhood boys confessed how much shorter her denims should recede, how the menu needed one less blouse button. You'd have been called faggot if Daisy Duke wasn't in your toolbox of references. My father was a mess cook, billeted to the officers' club, hence a glorified steward. He drove a red Maverick, a car bought and sold every 2 to 3 years, left behind when men rotated back to the States. The Maverick was my General Lee. But as much as I imitated Bo and Luke entering through the rolled window, settling into leather bucket seats, dusting corrupt small-town cops, I had this profound attraction to Barbara Bach's legs. When I had lived in Hawaii, legs were commonplace, but Bach/Daisy, being one person, made the generic fetish. Whereas Brian's father was squat for the saddle, the other Marine I knew was Jimmy's father, perhaps the tallest man on base, with a lumbering easy glide. Once, while waiting for Jimmy at his duplex, I was shuffling through a collection of unfamiliar 8-tracks. Led Zeppelin, Jethro Tull, Black Sabbath. Jimmy's father entered the living room naked. We've all seen our fathers naked. But I never thought a father could parade beyond the bathroom. That day I understood swinging dick, and I was wowed. Intimidated by the eye-level balls, ghostly, pale, anemic. Then the uncircumcised and pendulous. Does that amount to envy? Jimmy's white inheritance was an advantage he had over me. More so, I was puzzled because Jimmy's Korean mother was as small as my mother, but demure. I can see why my best friend was an only child. Those narrow hips cannot survive another half-breed birth. At the kitchen sink, her hands were in the cabbage, to be bottled and buried in the backyard. The leatherneck straddled her, and I was not at all bothered. She disappeared into his body. He cocked his head and asked if I was staying for dinner. I took home the kimchi instead, as always, but I took more than the condiment. The aftertaste or afterimage of kitchen foreplay, lasting longer than its exponential decay, that will draw me years later to 9.5 weeks, fatal attraction, eating Raoul, and the cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover. And more years afterward in college where I explored elementary eroticism, such as food prostitution and, of course, vampirism. Memory is that excess measured in the obscene. Memory is that obscenity layered in its avowed and tacit sexuality. Hunger for consumption. Hunger to consume. Yet there was something unsatisfying about Barbie. My sister's solution: deny the compulsory Ken doll. He was boxed. He lacked character or charm. Perhaps this was an act of resistance to rewrite Mattel's scripted companionship. Matchmaking is holistic, requires intimacy. The mail order catalog cannot replace. Ken cannot just jump out of the box thinking he's going to reach home base effortlessly. In December, my parents bought me a Han Solo doll. Not an action figure, an actual doll. I was horrified. Just because I knew almost everything about Star Wars didn't mean I wanted merchandise. For a 6-year-old, I was strangely detached from that kind of material gain. I preferred an M1 Garand, crates of pineapple grenades, a British Commando dagger. Regardless, boys didn't have dolls. Perhaps we would have entertained our fantasies more if we did have dolls, rather than sit meditatively in front of the television and gawk at Hazard County's daughters. But did we want to be caught alone in our rooms with them? A genuine fear of nuclear war explains why my dreams were lofty, supersonic, and stratospheric. For a career that would lift me above my epicenter, and not the repeated immobile domesticity repackaged for families shuttled to the front line. The Kens of the world resigned themselves to the 9-to-5, the formulaic relationships, the typecasts. I could not imagine living that lifestyle, and neither could my sister. Han Solo moved in with Barbie, and doing so disappeared into my sister's world. Did he give her the keys to the Millennium Falcon? Did she explore the galaxy, wield a blaster, fight the Empire, hug a Wookiee, train to be a Jedi Knight? Then I wonder, had Brian known of my sister's captivity in the company of Barbie dolls, and having watched Jaws 2 at the base theater, did he philosophize because life is short, that the unexpected, the monster, whether shark or bear, can shorten it further? That he wanted to show her the world beyond our home and our school, that he offered the way out? If you were Barbie and had to choose between a smuggler with a spaceship or a thug who could barely reach the pedals of his bike, who would you choose? Thank you.